tackle 40 minutes of racing action. A 40-minute race set to have a whole lot of stuff to worry about if you are these racers. Have to worry about the pit stop. Inside your screen, switched his attention to the massive pack of race cars that's going to blow his doors off and blow off the starter stand. The green flags and the drivers are on their way. Locked for at this race, the grass and the gravel that lines this racetrack. It's old school, so it doesn't have a whole lot of asphalt runoff area. He's a very talented racer of his own. These two fast. He drives very early on into this race. Looking Danny Wood had a big crash heading through turn number 1. That she's in that turn number 4. And here we go, side-by-side racing off into the corner. This can usually end in tears. One of these drivers is going to have to back out of it. That's going to be at Gallop. But Maunz still allowing some room coming out of the corner. The side-by-side going up the hill through turn number 6. Spade coming out of the corner. Walker the Canadian in the number 96. They are banging doors, heading into the braking time for the final time. They're linked together. That or you put a qualifying fuel load in either way. Getting a whole lot of pressure side by side with himself, and that is...
He's now coming out of the pits. Let's see what his pit lane time is, because this is going to be very important with Yanchi.
I don't know what to say. There's Brett Cathcart upside down. And another driver coming in. That's Jeff Jacobson upside down. Oh, boy. Well, hello and good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to Slow Motion Broadcasting, and welcome back to the Spec Racer Ford Weekend Warriors. This is round number 10 of the season, coming to you today from VIR. My name is Ron Maunz. Alongside me in the commentary booth is Randall McGrew, and in the virtual production hall we have Guido Marzucchi. What is there to be said about VIR? It's a classic sports car racing track. The SCCA runoffs have been run here, along with a lot of other SCCA events. IMSA's run here. Really, any sort of sports car racing in the United States and North America, period, has made their appearance at VIR at some point. I'm not really sure what subjective commentary we can really add when talking about this track, Randall. This is just going to be a really fun race.
I know what I can add. I consider this place heaven on earth. This is one of my favorite places in the world to go to, both virtually and in real life. I absolutely adore this track, and I can't wait to see what we get today.
I think I know someone else who refers to this track as heaven on earth. Was that referring to the Paul Newman quote by any chance, or am I misremembering what Paul Newman said?
No, this is just heaven for me. I love this place.
Fair enough. I mean, honestly, VIR is a wonderful track. It's got a mix of everything. You got these slow corners where you can go for some overtakes. You got that massively long back straightaway, which in these draft-heavy Spec Racer Fords going to create a rather exciting prospect in terms of overtaking. You also just got a good series of fast corners and medium-speed corners as well, which is going to create a really good race here for round number 10 of this season. This season has had it all. It's been exciting at times. It's been controversial at times, and we're off the back of a rather controversial race at Suzuka 1 week ago, but we got 3 more races left here for season 1 of 2025, and I think with that being said, we may want to take a quick gander at the championship points situation. With only 3 races left to go, we got to start thinking about the championship scenarios. In the Spec 1 category, it is incredibly close. Jason Green, who we're following at the moment in the 160 car, is your current championship leader. He's off the back of 2 straight wins technically speaking. He's off the back of 2 straight Spec 1 wins, though. He finds himself in the championship lead, only 2 points between himself and Felix Samoas, the Portuguese driver behind the wheel of the Type 116 Motorsports number 31 car. Those two covered by practically nothing. Has a pretty big gap back to Trent Kramer in the number 20 car in 3rd. Clearly, the front 2, as it stands currently, are going to be the ones that we have to talk about when it comes to the championship fight. Gonna move on now to Spec 2, where it's been really up in the air. I believe we haven't had, we've only had 1 repeat winner, as Ben Rycroft, but he's not in the championship lead. It's actually Dan Witzak holding on to the championship lead in the 413 car. 544 points on the board as it stands at the present moment. Took the checkered flag in the Spec 2 category at Donington Park. He's very fast and clearly proving that this season, keeping consistent too, which is really important when it comes to the Spec 2 battles. Paolo Brema, Andrew Love, and Paul Jackson going to round out your top 5 in the Spec 2 category. Gonna switch our attention over to Masters now, where it hasn't been as much of a story of dominance for Jurg Mani as it is in the other 2 Weekend Warriors series. However, still 121 points in front of Brad Cathcart. He may find himself in the position to lock up the championship here today at VIR, and if he does, he may try and go for 3 for 3, winning it in the Formula Vs. He's pretty much already sealed the deal in the Formula Fords and has a chance to do it in the Spec Racer Fords here today. Brad Cathcart in 2nd, Antonio Rees rounding out your top 3 in the Masters category. So that's how it looks as it stands at the present moment. And Randall, I'm going to ask you a somewhat loaded question here. What class championship battle are you probably looking forward to the most?
It's got to be Spec 2. I mean, that's the only one that's really hot and heavy right now. The Spec 1 is a little bit involved, but there's only really 2 drivers in that one. So, but Spec 2 is really where I like to keep my eye, because it's not so much about race wins, but consistency. So consistency is what really will bring you forward on the leaderboard in the Spec 2 division. So that's the one I always try to keep an eye on.
Yeah, Spec 2, always exciting. That Spec 1 fight, though, a lot of skin in the game between those two. Antonio Rees and Jason Green, both very talented drivers in this sim. Jason Green, you can catch him every single Tuesday over on the Racing Line podcast. He's fast. Both of those drivers are quick, and there's going to be a really good way to bring this season to a close. But as we're still in qualifying, let's do a quick little track guide. We're going to be following Aleix Pleva in the number 46 car on this lap, heading down that start-finish straightaway, cutting the beam a couple of moments ago, heading down in one of the heaviest braking zones around this lap. This is Horseshoe Turn number 1, and that is not the correct line to go through turn number 1. It is if you're part of the landscaping crew here for Virginia International Raceway, but for anyone else, it's probably not ideal. So let's re-rack this and try again. Maurizio Nazelli going to be the driver that we ride on board with here in the number 44 car. The German heading his way down into Horseshoe of turn number 1. You haven't heard this from me. That's a very good overtaking opportunity around this racetrack. Coming out of the corner, trying to build that momentum as you're still turning. Then you get a little bit of a reprieve before you head your way off into turn number 2, into NASCAR bend of turn number 3. That quick series of corners catches a lot of drivers out, and I'm sure on lap 1 is going to be no exception. This is left hook of turn number 4, which can really punch these drivers out. Now about to head her way into the snake section. This turn 5A into 6. About to head her way into 6A right now. Little room for error, and you see that tire and Armco barrier on the outside. It is menacing. Got a small little flat Appalasso before you head your way off into the uphill S's. While the most iconic sections of this racetrack, turn number 7 into turn number 8 through turn number 9 right now, and this is a real rough ride. Turn number 10 of South Bend. The amount of times that I've mowed some grass on the outside of that corner, you gotta wonder whether I should fill my lawnmower up with gas as a result. This heading into the oak tree section, little bit non-true to its name anymore based off the oak tree, the fact it got struck by lightning back in 2015, but still, it's called oak tree, and that leads you onto this massively long back straightaway. You can time it. We're on this back straightaway for what feels like 50 quintillion years in these low-powered Spec Racer Ford cars. Good overtaking opportunity, as we just saw from some of the cars that Maurizio Nazelli is looking to place in front of him. The draft, of course, going to be really important in this race. Come time for this section, roller coaster, turn number 14. 17. That's going to be the premier overtaking opportunity around this track come time for the end of this race. Seen many a driver go for that move in the past, not just in the Weekend Warriors, but in my entire time doing broadcasts around this track as well. The final section, Hog Pen, turn number 17, bringing this lap to a close. They have to get spat back onto this start-finish straight away. It's a fast track. It's a fun track as well, and it's also an opportunity for these drivers to play that oh-so-fun game of Spec Racer Ford Leapfrog.
And a huge field here today. This track is often referred to as the Nürburgring of North America, and it brings out a lot of specialists. This field being so big, it's looking more like an SCCA runoff than a normal league race. So we're going to have action-packed racing here today up and down the grid. It's going to be a huge gaggle of cars sending themselves off into turn one. We see Maurizio Naselli backed off on the back straight last lap, not trying to improve his time, trying to get in position so he has some slipstream, because all the fast drivers are getting slipstreams down that back straightaway. In practice, he was one of 2 drivers that was able to get into the 201s, and Murakami is really holding on for dear life in the snake there. So that's going to give Naselli no slipstream now, so he's going to be stuck in 4th position unless something can develop very, very quickly for him. But he was one of the 2 drivers that was able to break through the 202 barrier in practice. The other driver, I'm looking down the leaderboard to see where he's at, and he is not even in the top 10, it would look like. So, in 9th position, Jamison Huffman was the other driver that was able to break through the 202s. But that was on the back of the slipstream. It's so important here, and we heard it in the interview last week at the end of the race, that it always seems to come down to the slipstream on the last lap. That's where we see all the fireworks. That's where we see all the controversy. And it struck Maurizio Naselli more than anybody, it seems, this season. So his standings his position on the leaderboard does not accurately reflect the kind of season he's had. He's been pretty dominant.
Yeah, a lot of the drivers have been fast all throughout this season. Let's just go through the winners that we've had thus far in the Spec 1 category. Felix Samoa kicked it off with a win at Bathurst. Solau Shutwe won at Rodskogen. At Spa, it was Alace Pleva taking the checkered flag in rather controversial circumstances. Zolder, the week after that, it was Solau Shutwe taking the win after Felix Samoa picked up a slowdown coming out of the final corner. And then following that, we had Yanchi Lin, this man, the number 30 car, taking the win at Summit Point in rather exciting and also not so exciting fashion. He was involved in a very close battle towards the start of the race. Then the field blew apart, and he was just able to run away with the win, for lack of a better term. Finds himself 4th at the moment in this qualifying session with less than a minute to go. Following that was Alace Pleva winning that race at Silverstone, which for some reason is completely blanked out of my head. Felix Samoas won at Winton the following race. Jason Green won in the Spec 1 category at Donington Park, but he's the only driver in the Spec 1 class who did not take the checkered flag as the overall winner. Instead, it was Jörg Mani winning that race overall at Donington Park a couple of weeks ago. And then Suzuka 1 week ago. It was a race for sure that happened, and rather controversial circumstances with your current provisional pole sitter of Felix Samoas and your P5 qualifier of Maurizio Naselli. We want to give an update as to how things went as a result of all of that, so we figured you'd fill all of you in. So to those who tuned into that broadcast and saw Felix Samoas cross that start-finish line in first to take the checkered flag, you may be wondering why Jason Green is classed as the winner. Felix, in his interview after that, and in the days that followed, was rather regretful for what happened. It was not an intentional wreck. He did not mean to have that collision that took place between himself and Maurizio Naselli. It was just a hard racing incident, and sadly, it took Naselli out of it, and Samoas was not very pleased with himself. Felix Samoas, as I said in that interview 1 week ago, he is a very talented racer. He is good. That one incident for the number 31 car should not discredit the driver and the talent that that Portuguese man is. As a result of all that, he decided that he petitioned himself to get disqualified from that race at Suzuka. So he was classed with a DQ as a result of all that at Suzuka. It gave the win to Jason Green. That's part of the reason why we have a very close championship fight between the two of them. 2 points separating the two of them. Jason Green, off the back of his second win, Himself and Felix Samoa both tied on 2 wins thus far this season, but we'll touch on the championship fight a little bit later on. Let's talk about qualifying and how it's shaking up at the moment. Felix Samoa, your current provisional pole sitter. Josh Arnold set to join him on the front row in the number 17 car, 17 thousandths of a second behind Samoa. Michael Odell set a really good lap time a couple of moments ago to slip his way up into P5 overall, along with the Lace Plava, who jumped up in the process of that as well. Your current Masters pole sitter is Jurg Monty. Chris Murakami starting right behind him as it stands currently. And looking through, you have to go all the way back to Chris Montgomery in 18th to find the fact the top 18 are all covered by less than a second in this qualifying session.
Absolutely. Lots of good times here. Fortunately for some of these drivers, qualifying doesn't matter as much as long as you can avoid the opening lap mayhem. If you survive that opening lap, Slipstream will help you make your way up the field here. Having a good pit stop will also help you. It's a lot of good opportunities to save fuel here. So a lot of things you can do to make your way up the field if you don't qualify all that well. You know that they're going to be fighting up front. So if you lose contact with the lead pack and they begin fighting at any point during the race, you're going to quickly close that gap up.
Super good opportunities to try and make a good race out of yourself. That is going to be the name of the game for some of these drivers as they try and be opportunistic and kick off the final trio of races from this Spec Racer Ford Weekend Warrior season here for season 1 of 2025 in the best way that they possibly can. We've got a brilliant schedule of races to bring the season to a close. VIR today, Cadwell Park in 1 week's time, and Road Atlanta going to bring this season to a close. Road Atlanta going to be a rather interesting race because that is going to be just about the 2-year anniversary of my first ever Weekend Warriors broadcast, which was at Road Atlanta with the Spec Racer Ford Weekend Warriors all the way back in mid-March of 2023. I think it was my 4th or 5th broadcast in my entire broadcasting career. It was myself and Tim Cox on the call for that. I think we had 56 cars. Talk about trial by fire. That was more so a trial by firing squad. But ready to get things up and rolling from this 10th race of the season. And to get things underway, let's take a look at the starting grid. Felix Samoa going to grab the pole for this race in the number 31 car, trying to be on the comeback tour and kick off the final trio of this races as best as he possibly can. The Canadian of Josh Arnold set to join him on the front row. We've got Sol Al-Shutwi starting this race in 3rd next to Yanshi Lin in 4th. Michael Odell, the Spec 2 pole sitter, will be starting this race in P5 overall. Lace Plava going to complete that 3rd row. Maurizio Nazelli, the German, in the 44, 4/10 of a second back of Samoa's. He's going to be starting in 7th. No hard feelings between those two drivers. Just a quick little point to raise there. We got a full formation lap here. Holy cow, the luxury treatment. Chris Houston will start this race in 8th. Jason Green looking to challenge Felix Samoa for that championship, is going to be starting this race in P9. Tortolo going to round out your top 10. Jameson Huffman will start this race in 11th. Jurg Monty will start it in P12. Chris Murakami will start in 13th. Andrew Love in P14. Scott Russell in 15th. Ben Rycroft in 16th. Joshua Wilkie will start this race in 17th. Chris Montgomery in 18th. Tom Gradwell, the Aussie, in the 909 car, will start in 19th, with Al McCain running at your top 20.
Adam Thompson from Slow Motion Broadcasting going to be starting 21st next to Joaquim Osbeck in 22nd. Rain Tyson going to start up or line up 23rd next to Daniel Menikov in 24th. 25th position, we'll see. Survey says Aid Allen out of Wales in that Welsh flag livery will be starting 25th. Claudio Gardini 26th. Dan Witzak in 27th. Kurt Nunez in 28th. Adam Bradshaw starting 29th with Charles Vaccaro. Welcome back, Charles, in 30th position. Antonio Reese 31st. John Payne 32nd. Leonard Geese starting 33rd alongside the Frito Sport entry of Matt Thompson in 34th. Paulo Brame back in 35th. Paul Jackson all the way back in 36th position. 37th going to be Marcus Burkett starting next to Michael Nelson. Stephen Mitchell going to start 39th. Joseph Tarantino going to round out the top 40. And then the rest of the field, Ethan Orr, Patrick Farragher, Russell Telker, Brad Cathcart, and David Jarvis. 45 cars set to attack VIR in anger. How many of them will make it to the end? Not sure. But they got a long pace lap here to prepare their tires to try to get everything in working order. and to start planning their strategies.
Here's the question, Randall. Not only how many drivers are going to make it to the end of this race, how many drivers are going to make it to the end of lap 1? Turn number 1 around VIR can usually spawn a bit of chaos. I remember doing a broadcast of a rather highly ranked GT3 series on the iRacing platform, and I think we had I think it was like a 35 car pileup coming at turn number 1, to the point where the series admins and the people on the broadcast were having to fend off a firestorm in the YouTube chat. So turn number 1 around this track can be rather threatening at times. So I feel like, as much as we have a lot of laps in this race coming up, turn 1 and lap 1 as a whole going to be nothing to scoff at either.
Absolutely. It needs to be survival mode for those first few corners. Once you get your way through the snake, everything should be worked out single file as you make your way up through the S's. Then you're going to have to hold on for dear life as you go through South Bend for the first time. But once you make it through Oak Tree, things should settle down quite a bit. We might see some challenges for position, but everybody will be kind of in the groove by that point. But yeah, those first few corners, absolutely imperative that you survive. If you don't, you're going to have a long day and you're not going to have a good result.
Yeah, really important to get this race kicked off on the right foot. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step, but you don't want to twist your ankle on the first one. It reminds me of the time that my mother went ice skating years ago, which is neither here nor there. But regardless, actually, that's a little bit mean. I feel like if I went ice skating, I would have all of the coordination of a blind marmoset running on a telephone pole. So, oh boy. This is going to be a fun race, though, Randall, around this old-school track, open all the way back in 1957, remained open from that original stint until 1974. Then the track was abandoned from 74 all the way up until the turn of the century in the year 2000. So, a rather odd story of this racetrack. When people found it back in the 90s, it basically was a giant chicken farm. But now, these drivers are going to be playing chicken with each other. That run into turn number 1 going to be super sketchy. We got a championship battle that we need to talk about as well. Some drivers that may not be too happy with their season up to this point, looking to bring it to a close in the best way imaginable. That pace car making the turn to come down pit lane. The field now crawling their way down that start-finish straightaway, but the green flag is out, and the drivers are on their way. And it's Samoa's getting off to a flyer. Josh Arnold going to be slipping in P2, trying to fend off a challenge from Sol Al-Shutwi and Yanshi Lin right behind. Look at some drivers trying to get some moves done. Look at that, down the inside into turn number 1. That was a 199 of Jameson Huffman, a real-life Formula Enterprise driver, has some experience running around this track, looking to make hay while the sun is shining very early on, but as a field negotiates their way through the opening corners, it is still Felix Samoes leading this race, and a decent chunk of the field getting through the opening corners clean. Hopefully I didn't just jinx it, though.
Yeah, it looks like they're really working to get themselves into single file here as early as possible before they get to this section of the track, the snake. You really don't want to go through this section too wide, and we see everybody is kind of running line of stern now. Everybody's single file as they make their run up the hill for the first time through the S's at speed, and at the top of the hill is South Bend, and it is absolutely scary to go through on cold tires. We'll see if anybody backs out or if anybody gets it wrong and ends up mowing some grass. If you get off the track a little bit there, you get off the track a lot, and you can end up down in the gully mowing some grass and trying to find your way back onto the track from a long ways away. Felix Samoes leads the way through Oak Tree. Down the back straight for the first time, we're seeing him fan out just a little bit of Leish Pleva, and is that Yanshi Lin battling for position. We're going to see who's going to win that as they slipstream their way down the back straightaway.
I gotta say, this has been a very clean start to this race for these drivers. A couple of drivers getting involved in some drama a little bit farther in the back and dropping down the running order. But outside of that, it has been a really good start to this race. At the front of the field, though, Felix Samoes and Josh Arnold looking to break away as we see some side-by-side and three-wide action coming out of the roller coaster corner. Holy cow, that is terrifying. Jameson Huffman trying to get some moves done in the 199 car. Already has a little bit of scraping on the front end of that race car. Jameson, we saw him on track for the Formula V Weekend Warriors one day ago here in SMB. He's a fast driver, do not get me wrong, but he tends to risk it for the biscuit or risk it for the Triscuit if he's feeling the low-calorie option in that certain race, and certainly proving that very early on, all the way up to 5th, but a little bit of damage on the front end of that race car, which in these aero-sensitive Spec Racer Fords is not a recipe for a very good day behind the wheel.
It is not. He's going to have to rely heavily on that slipstream in order to keep pace. The second he steps out, he's going to feel that damage and immediately slow down. They do have a bit of a headwind coming down that back straightaway, so that's going to make the slipstream even more powerful. But the second you step out, that headwind is going to smack you right in the face and immediately slow that car down. So you're going to have to time that pass very well and get it right at the end of the straightaway if you're going to have any hopes of winning that race into roller coaster. Right now, Felix Simoes and Josh Arnold are breaking away. They got quite a gap built already. They've got enough distance between them and third place that they won't be giving any slipstream to Yanxi Lin. So that second group is going to have to kind of work together to catch these two, because these two will be very, very happy to not fight each other and just keep running away.
And I'm curious if they will be able to break away from that pack behind. It all depends on whether or not Yanxi Lin, Alaise Pleva, and Jameson Huffman are going to start to battle, which, considering the aggression, for lack of a better term, that we've seen from Jameson Huffman thus far, I would not be shocked if we start to see these drivers go side by side and allow the front two to break away. In fact, I think they're going 3 wide right behind these drivers. Yeah, there we go. So... not playing me like a fiddle, I read them like a book. James Huffman getting that move done to slip his way up into fourth. Alaise Pleva slide in third. Yanxi Lin running at your top 5 as it stands at the present moment. Michael Odell, your current leader in the Spec 2 category. Chris Murakami, your leader in Masters, occupying the final spot inside the top 10. But surprisingly enough, despite that 3 wide action hanging down the back straightaway, that gap between Simoes and Arnold and Pleva, Huffman, and Lin has actually decreased a little bit, down to 1.7.
We see a bit of a replay here as somebody gets it a little bit wrong and is gonna not be pleased with their results here today. And I'm not exactly sure what happened there, but tries to get going back in the right direction as we rejoin live pictures. Josh Arnold with a move for the lead over Felix Simoes coming out of turn 1. So maybe Simoes got it a little bit wrong going into turn 1, gives the spot up to Josh Arnold. And you're absolutely right. Here comes Alaise Pleva. That gap is down to 1.2 seconds. A couple more good sectors, and they'll be back in the slipstream range.
At this point in time, these drivers looking to settle this race into a groove. Don't get too racy very early on. Still got a lot of racing left to go. Let's take a look at a moment to see Andrew Love in the 544. That's Josh Wilkie going for the dive into turn number 1. And oh, he gets bumped off. That right there, I believe, was Tortolo and the number 90 Cookie Monster car. The Cookie Monster leaving some crumbs around turn 1.
Yeah, he's not going to be happy with how that turned out. Did not look intentional. This looks like he missed his brake marker. It's easy to do when you're backed up in a lot of traffic like that. You kind of don't really know where your mark is at because it's blocked by another car, and you just kind of have to guess. If you haven't practiced the alternate line entry, you're not really sure exactly where to hit the brakes. He got it a little bit late, dove in there pretty deep. Simoes back to the lead over Josh Arnold coming through Oak Tree, and now they're going to do a little bit of bump drafting, it appears, is Josh Arnold's going to kind of push him and then stick his nose out and then decide to fall back into line.
And looking at these drivers trying to work together, but I don't think they're really going to be able to break away from that pack of Pleva, Lin, and Huffman behind. That gap is still dropping down. It's now about 1 second between Josh Arnold and Alaise Pleva, so this is not looking ideal at all. I think Rain Tasing has had a moment in the 426 car that I think may have been hanging down into turn number 14. He's dropping down like a rock down the running order, but getting back to the point that I was going to raise, I'm going to ask you this, Randall. Do you think Simoes and Arnold are going to be able to firmly break away? Or do you think that pack of Pleva, Lin, and Huffman behind just has that pace advantage?
It really comes down to the aggression in that second group. If they can stay like they are now and not fight too much, they have a pretty good shot at it. We have seen Simoes and Arnold fight a little bit. I don't know if there was much fighting or just that the other driver making a mistake and drivers taking advantage of that, just making their way down the road while they can, because they don't want to lift, because that will definitely bring them into contact. But I think right now, the way it looks, Arnold's having a little bit of trouble holding on to Simoes here, and he's going to be falling back just enough to give Pleva that slipstream. And as they make their way up through the S's, the slipstream will have a little bit of an effect there and allow them to close that gap a little bit. And having a bit of a buffer between him and Josh Arnold will give Pleva the opportunity to send a nice deep braking move into Oak Tree. And as long as he can get back to the throttle early enough, he should close the gap up enough to get at least a vestigial amount of slipstream down the straightaways. We're going to jump back and take a look at what happened with Rain Tasting here as he's coming through the roller coaster, and he just carries too much speed into that corner, slides it off into the grass, ends up pointing the wrong direction, gets it going once again and going to rejoin, but that's a lot of positions lost.
That section is so tough to try and get right because you're turning through a braking zone, which, regardless of what kind of race car you're running around, could be in a Formula 1 car, could be a Spec racer Ford, any sort of end of the motorsports game, but easy mistake to make it. We just saw two drivers make it in the span of the same moment. That was Yanxi Lin going off the track in the worst way. Lace Pleva went off the track as well, but it didn't hurt him too badly. Yanxi blinking in and out of existence, heading down into Hog Pen, but both those drivers overshooting their marks quite a lot. That's going to allow that gap to grow between Felix Samoas and Josh Arnold. However, Pleva finds himself in the midst of a real peck of trouble here. Here we go. Huffman trying to get the move done on Pleva. Jason Green looking to get the move done just at the fastest lap of the race last time by a 2:02.2. But here we go. 2x2 heading through turn number 1. Look at that, Michael Odell in the 297 car, the real life Spec Racer Ford driver, trying to get a move done on the Spec Racer Ford Weekend Warrior star of Lace Pleva. Here we go, side by side, finally single filing out, heading off into left hook at turn number 4 and sideways slideways with Odell coming out of that corner. That was a nice save.
Yeah, it looked like Odell had to react to Pleva being a little bit slow there. I think Pleva may have overheated the tires with that excursion through roller coaster, and he's still trying to wrangle that car. But in the meantime, Samoes and Arnold have driven off into the veritable sunset. Now that gap is absolutely massive, nearly 2.5 seconds. So as long as these drivers can keep it clean, keep it relatively mistake-free, they should have a good chance to break away here. Jamison Huffman now leading this pack. He was one of the 2 drivers that was able to run under 2 minutes and 2 seconds in practice, but that was with slipstream. Now that he's leading this pack, he doesn't have that slipstream, and he won't be able to save as much fuel. Maurizio Nazelli is 4th in line in that pack, or 5th in line in that group, and he'll be able to save some fuel. He's always very, very thrifty when it comes to fuel usage. Even when he's leading the way, having a big dose of slipstream like this is going to help him save even more fuel. Watch for him to make a big jump during the pit strategy, and when he comes out of the pit lane, possibly leading this group, maybe even closing that gap to the drivers ahead a little bit.
Yeah, possibly. I certainly wouldn't rule that out at all. Still very early on into this race. Just ticking over the first 10 minutes, and what a first 10 minutes of this race it has been. Lots of drivers making up some moves. Others dropping down like a rock. I think I may have just jinxed our SMB colleague, Mr. Joshua Wilkie. He was running inside the top 20. I think he just dropped out of it. 3 cars already out of this race, that being Tortello, Joseph Tarantino, and the driver who did not take the start by the name of Antonio Race. So, not really the drama that we were expecting at the start. It's exciting, don't get me wrong, but I was fully expecting there to be some sort of field clearing accident, which we really have not. The only sort of scraping going on seems to be to the front of Jameson Huffman's car. Jason Green going off the track, heading down into NASCAR Bend. That's got to be a big off-track moment for him.
There was a big contact with the rear end of Leish Pleva's car and the front end of Jason Green's car as they approached NASCAR Bend, and I think Leish kind of came across the nose and was on the brake, and Jason Green not quite expecting it. We're going to get another view of it here. We see Leish Pleva and Jamison Huffman there kind of side by side, and a big checkup there out of Leish Pleva. I think maybe, I want to say maybe Leish Pleva got confused as to what corner they were on and maybe hit the brakes a little bit more than Jason Green was expecting. I think Leish maybe thought they were coming up the left hook and not to NASCAR. Got on the brakes a little heavily and caused Jason Green to run into the back of him. Not 100% sure. We're going to see what happened with Josh Wilkie. He's going to go off at he's going to get taken off at roller coaster by another car who went off the inside. So not really Wilkie's fault. Maybe could have left a little bit more room, but not what you expect to happen as he rejoins the track here at the tail end of the pack. So a bad day for Josh Wilkie.
Yeah, a bad day for sure. Not ideal in the slightest. That I think, unless I'm very much mistaken, I will hold off on saying who that was. I think it may have possibly been Kurt Nunez. Looked like his car in the 918, but I cannot say with 100% confidence that was who it was. Back at the front of the field, though, and it's Michael Odell, the Spec 2 leader, currently running this race in P3 overall. This is a really good drive. You have to go back to Adam Thompson in the 644 car to find your next Spec 2 runner. He's a little bit farther down in the pack running P15 as it stands currently. So it's pretty big cushion that Michael Odell finds himself being able to rest his head on as it stands currently, at least in terms of class position. For overall position, looks like Jameson Huffman trying to give him a bump draft heading down into turn number 3. Jameson Huffman very fast. I gotta say one thing as well. I'm not sure if you can corroborate this, Randall, but I think the scraping and the damage on the front of Jameson Huffman's car has disappeared. Not sure how he managed that, but I think that car is looking clean now.
Ethan Orr with a big moment. Somebody checking up in front of him, and he had to panic brake and get out of it there and takes it off the track. We're going to watch on board with Paul Jackson, and I'm trying to see who that is to the left of him. Is that Kevin Adrian? Possibly. No, it's not. And then see Paul Jackson gets it wrong, checking up as well. So a couple cars off track there at Roller Coaster. And I think Michael Odell, and you're right, that the damage seems to be disappearing and reappearing on Huffman's car. I think Odell has inherited this position via a bit of a rope-a-dope strategy of letting him get up to the front because he seems to want to race up there, and everybody else is going to save fuel behind him because I don't think that they're going to be able to really close down the gap to the leaders. Their best hope right now is to save fuel, bump drafts, and just try not to let that gap get any bigger. As Maurizio Naselli says, nope, forget that. I'm going to stick my nose out. We're going to go for a move here. I want to get my way up to the front. So he's going to get one spot from Jameson Huffman, not going to be able to get Odell this time through Roller Coaster, but makes his way up through that group and now is going to be second place in that group, fourth place overall.
And the front 3 drivers in this pack have had very good races. Odell up 2 spots from where he started, Naselli up 3, Jameson Huffman up 6. Even Jorg Monty a little bit farther behind, he's up 4 spots as well. So lots of drivers doing very, very well. But as we take a look at the live action, seeing Michael Odell get shuffled back down to 5th as Naselli and Huffman go down into the first corner and get the move done on him. Odell still not out of harm's way as Aleix Pleva on his inside. Yanchi Lindgall looked to follow Pleva, not close enough. So Odell going to be slotted in 6th after a rather torrid time of things over the past 15 seconds, trying to get a move done around the outside into NASCAR Bend, not close enough. Looking at this pack forming, it is very much so formed. It goes all the way back to Jason Green running in 11th as it stands currently to find all these drivers. I will note one thing as well, talking about this pack and Jason Green. You can see a little bit of damage on that race car, and he probably wants that damage to be gone so he can keep up with the still race leader of Felix Samoas. There you can see the damage on that race car, that wheel sticking out a teeny tiny bit. As looking through the field as it stands currently and seeing a side-by-side fight with Danilo Manikov and Adam Thompson. Oh, look at that. Manikov breaking at the elbows, adding through the S's. And, oh, boy, we nearly just saw a collision with Montgomery and Thompson.
Yeah, Thompson came over and was off the pace a little bit and caused Montgomery to have to check up big. He's lucky he didn't get taken out there. Heads up driving from Montgomery to be able to get onto the brakes like that and not spin the car. So we're seeing some action here in the mid-pack. We saw Naselli make his way to the front of that group. Now we see Huffman up there once again, but he had Huffman pushed him in a lot of places. Those two were the fastest drivers in practice, so they look like they're trying to actually get this done with pace to try to close that gap, and they've had some success. That gap is coming down a couple tenths, about a tenth a lap, so they're not completely stationary. They are getting some progress made. So the front 2 drivers kind of holding station now, running their race to trying to keep that gap. That second group really, really playing a lot of leapfrog to try to close it up, as we see Aleix Pleva going to jump in front of Huffman there going into turn 1, and that gap is down to 2.2 seconds, and that's basically a tenth a lap, tenth and a half a lap. So there's a chance that they can close this gap up.
Yeah, still a lot of things that can happen between now and the end of this race, and we have to start thinking about the pit stops as well, Randall, because that is a real important factor in these Spec Racer Ford races. We've seen a lot of races thus far this season be decided because of some bold and audacious pit calls, and even not just decided, have these races be completely shuffled up as a result of the run through the pits. savor what we've got at the present moment with the pack from Alace Pleva in third all the way back down to Jason Green in, actually no, it goes down to Solal Shutwe in 11th. Savor it as we have it, because come time for those pit stops, it'll probably break that battle up a little bit, and it'll probably potentially cause a swap-a-roo between these two of Josh Arnold in that very nice-looking Tyrrell tribute paint scheme, the Elf car, and Samoa's still leading this race ever since the drop of the green flag. Been a very exciting start to this race, though, but I will raise this one point here, Randall. I think this pack that we've been keeping our tabs on, this 8-car fight, breaking up more so into a 4-4.
Yeah, it is starting to break up a little bit. We see a lot of movement in this pack, and back there, Jörg Manny trying to make his way up through this group. He might have a chance to close the gap. There was a little bit of contact there between Huffman and Pleva. Jörg Manny trying to close the gap up. To keep this as one group instead of two separate groups, they're going to be very interested to stay with this group, because once they get through the pit cycle, they have a chance to gain a bunch of spots. But if they lose a bunch of time on track because they lose the slipstream, that will never happen. Right now, I think Josh Arnold is sitting in the catbird seat here. He's not led very much of this race. He's been sitting in second for most of it, so he's been able to save a lot of fuels. We're going to see Daniel Mananikov coming through a roller coaster, and he has a car go off right in front of him. Doesn't affect him at all, but this is definitely going to be a scary moment as Adam Thompson spins off on his own, unforced error, and he's going to go for a bit of an excursion here, trying to find the track. Somebody get this guy a track map.
Yeah, I think maybe we're trying to find a McDonald's or something like that on the on the outskirts of that corner. Gotta say one thing as well, a bad VIR, some rather expansive grass runoff area. Randall, I will raise you this. Have you ever done a broadcast at VIR when someone went off the track coming out of South Bend and ended up rejoining the track on the back straightaway facing oncoming traffic?
Yes, I have seen that happen. It is a scary moment. It was, I believe it was an LMP2 car that I saw do it in a mixed class race with LMP2s and GT3s, and it was absolutely spooky. We watched it on board from the driver that was coming through Oak Tree, and all of a sudden an LMP2 appears out of nowhere.
Yeah, I gotta say, I've gotten close to having something like that. I think the closest call I had was couple of weeks ago for a broadcast with a different broadcaster that I will not mention by name. Someone went off the track and rejoined it. I'll hold off on that point, though. Side by side with Josh Arnold and Felix Samoas for the race lead. The game of leapfrog starts between these two. Josh Arnold getting the move done, and for the first time ever since the drop of the green flag over 20 minutes ago, we now have a swap-a-roo for the lead. Josh Arnold, the Canadian, in the number 17 car, now holds on to it.
I think he might come into the pits this time by. That might be a move that he's going to make, try to get as much track position as he can and then come into the pits. Nope, he's going to stay out. We are in the pit window now, though I think most of these drivers are going to hold out for the last possible moment so they can run as many low fuel laps as they can. But you don't want to come in by yourself. You come in by yourself, you pretty much write off any chance of winning this race. You're going to need somebody to come with you. You're going to need some slipstream. You're going to make sure you have somebody to draft with when you come out. Otherwise, the group you're racing with is going to drive away until they take their pit stop.
Let's see how things are going to shake out between now and the end of this race. Already past the halfway mark. Doesn't feel like we've had half of this race go by, but we have. Here's some side-by-side racing and contact being made. That's Tom Gradwell and another Masters competitor heading down into turn number 12. That is the roller coaster section. That right there was the 921 car of Charles Vaccaro that he made contact with. And bad news to some. Adam Thompson has disconnected from this race. So I guess another falling anvil coming down and crashing upon him. Not ideal for him at all. Maybe had to pull out of this race and try and scour the money together to pay off the landscaping crew, who probably wasn't very happy after his off-track excursion that we saw a couple of laps ago.
We're currently serving lap 11, expecting to have a 20-lap race here. So we're just past the halfway mark as far as laps go. Again, the pit window's open. Felix Samoas has retaken the lead here. It looks like he got it done in turn 1, and it's leading over Josh Arnold. This gap up to second place from third place has been pretty static the past few laps. They've been duking it out, and they're going to go 3 wide as here comes Jamison Huffman. He's going to get the 2-for-1 special on the back straight. gets the lead of this group going into roller coaster and going to try to track down that gap ahead. Is 2.1 seconds, so they're making a little bit of progress. That was a big slingshot for Huffman, so that enabled him to close the gap just a little bit. But they need to keep it up, and they need to keep going as the leaders are now into the pits. So the lead pair are in the pits. Huffman going to inherit the lead and lead this lap. We'll see how this shakes out. Jason Green also going to take the opportunity to come to the pits. No surprise that he's coming in as early as possible. He wants to get some of that damage repaired after hitting the back end of Aleix Pleva. But Felix Simoes, Josh Arnold pit out of the lead, and we'll see when the rest of the field reacts.
And that's going to be a big change in the way we've seen this race go up to this point. Simoes and Arnold coming in together, which I'm a little bit surprised about, Randall, if I'm being so honest, because we've seen in previous races from not just the Spec Racer Fords, but pretty much all of the Sunday Weekend Warrior Series drivers at the front of the field, birds of a feather not sticking together. However, those two have been driven apart. There we go. So Felix Simoes now running in 18th. And Josh Arnold running down in 21st. So I think there was definitely a discrepancy between the times that those two spent down pit lane. Got to pull that up on my live timing screen right now and tell you that Felix Simoes spent 40.7 seconds down pit lane and 15.73 seconds stopped in his pit stall. Compared to Josh Arnold, meanwhile, he spent 8 seconds more down pit lane, and the same can be said about his time spent in the pits. I mentioned earlier on how we need to savor that racing that we were seeing not terribly long ago, not because it was going to go away, but just because the complexion of this race was going to change. That's further proof. The drivers who at one point not terribly long ago were side by side, now driven apart by 8 seconds because of the run through the pits. But here we go, 3 wide and 2 wide, heading down that back straightaway off into Roller Coaster Bend. It's turn number 14. I will correct myself from earlier. And here we go, Yanchi Lin, Michael Odell side by side racing with Aleix Pleva and James Huffman. Let's see if these drivers at the front of the field are going to shatter the call made by Simoes and Arnold 1 lap ago and join them down pit lane.
I'm looking right now. Felix Simoes doesn't really have a drafting partner. He's about 1.3 seconds behind the car ahead, so he's looking to get a little bit of slipstream. Arnold having that long stop, not going to help him, but we see Pleva, Huffman, Nazelli, Manny, Houston, Murakami all in the pit lane. That's going to leave Yanchi Lin and Michael Odell out here to turn another lap. I suspect they'll come in at the end of this lap, but that's going to mean not as much slipstream for these two drivers, but also less fighting. So hopefully these two can just set a really quick in lap, come in this time by, and rejoin that group. The pit lane is a very, very busy place right now. We're seeing more coming. Alan McCain, Ben Rycroft, Andrew Love, Dana Maninkov, Adam Bradshaw, Paulo Bream, Ethan Orr. So everybody coming into the pits for the most part this lap. We have a few people that stayed out or were able to save some fuel. Josh Wilkie among those. So we'll see if they're able to come in, if they have to come in this lap, or if they're able to stretch even another lap out of this.
And let's see who's been the best at managing their fuel thus far in this race, which we've talked about how important the pit calls are. Of course, fuel saving and fuel strategy really important as well. Following your 1-point race leader of Felix Simoes in the number 31 car. He's running 6th as it stands at the present moment. The gap between himself and Aleix Pleva is about 1.3 seconds there. You can see Pleva a little bit farther back, and James and Huffman right there as well. Worked out really well with those drivers coming into the pits. I'm going to pull up my live timing tower to see exactly how long those drivers spent in the pits compared to each other. May not be as easy as I previously had in mind, considering the shuffling up that we've seen from the field thus far. I'll just compare these two. Felix Simoes spent 40.7 seconds down pit lane and 15.7 seconds stopped in his pit stall. Jameson Huffman, meanwhile, spent about 2 less in each. So it may not seem like much, but 2 seconds can make a world of difference in a race like this. But here we go, back to live action, and going to follow Yanchi Lin and Michael Odell coming into pit lane.
We'll keep an eye out for Felix Simoes, your effective race leader right now. We'll see if he's able to regain that lead as the pit strategy works out. We're going to follow Claudio Gardini, who is currently leading on a track. He will likely come into the pits this time by as well. will John Payne, Joshua Wilkie, and then I will leave Felix Simoes to come out and possibly retake this lead. He's got a nice gap back to Aleix Pleva. Pleva able to make his way around Huffman as we see Wilkie dip into the pit lane. Felix Simoes now coming on the front straight and keeping our eyes towards that pit exit is who's going to come out in the lead. Yanchi Lin and Michael Odell are well underway, but are they going to be able to rejoin with speed? No, they are not. Felix Simoes going to regain the lead of this race. Aleix Pleva in second. Jamison Huffman in third place. Yanchi Lin going to slot in fourth. Michael Odell going to slot in fifth. And that gap has come down. That was 2.5 seconds. Is now 1.2 seconds. So Aleix Pleva needs to get on it here and try to track down just another tenth. Oh, Sula Shootwe gets a little bit of a punt there from, is that Daniel? No, sorry, Josh Arnold. Yes, it was Josh Arnold getting into the back of Sula Shootwe, sending him for a little bit of a ride. So Josh Arnold now struggling after he's made his pit stop. Felix Simoes trying like hell to run off with this race, but that gap behind is not very big.
Yeah, that was a messy incident heading down into turn number 1. I gotta say, as a result of this pit cycle, leaving us with not a lot to worry about in terms of pit stops for these drivers, at least at the front of the field in the final 12 minutes of this race. The driver who I can't even say got the short end of the stick, they just got flat out screwed, is Josh Arnold. He finds himself in 10th. He was running in the lead for a very brief period of time, but things have gone to hell in a handbasket for him. Let's be completely honest. That's unfortunate for the driver of the number 17 car. Showed a lot of pace, but he's going to have to hope for a miracle to be able to close up that gap between himself and Felix Simoes between now and the end of this race. But I got to wonder at this point, as we see side-by-side racing with Jamison Huffman and Aleix Pleva, Maurizio Nazelli and Yanchi Lin shadowing that call from the drivers right in front of them as well to go side-by-side down this back straightaway this time by. I got to wonder, will Felix Simoes be able to hold on to this race lead? Will he be able to manage that gap? Will he have a cushion at the end of this race? Is it going to be another tense end for Simoes, or is this race going to be one where he's a bit more comfortable? The gap right now, not a lot between himself and Jamison Huffman, but as we've seen, these races can completely change in their complexion with the snap of a finger.
I don't think he's going to have an easy win here. I do not think that he's going to be able to run away with this short of an incident between Pleva and Huffman. And I don't think they're interested in racing with each other very hard at the moment. They're trying to play the game of leapfrog to close that gap. They're within slipstream range now. So this time on the back straightaway, if the gap is what it is now, we should see it get much smaller, much quicker. So Simoes going to have his hands full soon. He's going to have his hands full even sooner. He's got Patrick Farragher in front of him. Going to be a little bit of lap traffic. He's going to hopefully get that done in a place that's not going to cost him a lot of time. They're approaching the S's, and you don't want to be slowed down by a lap traffic car in the S's, because that's definitely going to close the gap. He would have hoped to have gotten that on the back straight to get a bit of slipstream, but right now he's kind of going to be stuck unless Farragher can manage to get out of the way on the run up to Oak Tree. But here is Simoes now. He's going to be held up huge by this lap traffic car as they go sliding through South Bend, and a big checkup and some front end damage to Simoes.
Oh,
and that's
here we
going to
go.
make him lose the lead, because here comes Jamison Huffman going to get that spot, and boy, Simoes probably good that we can't see the cockpit of that car. He's probably giving some quite rude hand gestures to Farragher there as he makes his way past.
I think there's only one thing that's probably being said by Felix Simoes as it stands at the present moment, that being bleep, 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 and I can't really blame him for being bleeped off, because that is a really bleeping unfortunate way to lose the lead of this race. He's still in P2, getting a moved on Aleix Pleva, heading down that back straightaway off into turn number 14. But it shows you how quickly things can change. One lap ago, he had a second lead. Now, he got the short end of the stick here. You can't necessarily blame Farragher for all that too much, because it's just the worst possible time in which you can catch up to lap traffic. That is a one-line corner of every seat, but credit where credit's due to Jamison Huffman for licking the stamp and sending it on Simoes, heading down into Oak Tree. He's a fast racer. I've been able to commentate races with him for about a year now, and I can tell you that he's quick, but he's withstanding the challenge, and not withstanding the challenge from Samoa's heading down into turn number 1. He was withstanding it for a while, but Samoa's jumping his way back into the race lead. But we've got ourselves a real exciting fight to talk about. You got Felix Samoa's leading this race, Jameson Huffman, who led a matter of 30 seconds ago. Yanshi Lin maybe looking for a bit of redemption after the unfortunate way that his Formula Ford race went earlier on today. Michael O'Dell in the 297 car, the Spec 2 man, going to try and become just the second non-Spec 1 driver to take an overall win this season. Hey, if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be the driver of the 297 car, a real-life Spec Racer Ford driver. He's shown a heck of a lot of pace and a heck of a lot of potential here in the Spec Racer Fords. If he's going to strike, he's going to strike while the iron's hot. He got Lace Pleva, who won earlier on in the season. Maurizio Nazelli, who really should have won at Suzuka 1 week ago. Lots of heavy hitters at the front of the field, but not a lot of time left for them to sort this all out.
Absolutely not. We're serving lap 16 out of 20, so there will be 4 laps to go this time by. So that's 4 more shots at the back straight, and you're kind of already starting to play that game of chess of where you want to be on the last lap, because this is where it's really going to be decided, this run down the back straightaway. I think you probably want to be second place in that group, but you got to time it so that you're actually there on the last lap. We're seeing some moves. Here comes Yanshi Lin going to look to make the move. He's going to get 2 for 1 possibly here. Yes, he's going to get 2 for 1. I think Samoes and Huffman both played a little bit of rope-a-dope and like, go ahead, lead the way, sir. We don't want to be in the front of this pack quite yet. So Yanshi Lin going to jump up to the lead of the race for this lap. We'll see how long he stays there, though.
And let's see how long he is going to stay in that position. I have a feeling that's not going to be for very long. These Spec Racer Ford races are always a 150-mile-an-hour game of leapfrog. And let's see, heading down into turn number 1, Felix Samoa is trying to take the lead. Yanshi Lin on the outside line. The trouble with Samoa's is that as a result of that lap traffic encounter not terribly long ago, he's got damage on that race car. You can see that front left tire peeking out a bit. Both front tires, really, both sides of the front, sticking out a little bit. That front clip pinched in a teeny tiny bit. It may not seem like a huge difference, but in these aero-sensitive, draft-heavy race cars, I don't think Felix, if he starts the final lap of this race, or not even the final lap, if he goes down the back straightaway in the race lead on the last lap of this race, there is no way that he ends up taking the checkered flag. I'm calling it right now.
Steven Mitchell looks like he had a bit of an issue as he's going to get tagged heavily coming into roller coaster, and a huge impact with the tire barriers there. That's going to be the end of his race. Looks like somebody behind him was not expecting the braking to happen that early. When you're in a line of cars like that, everybody has to brake a little bit earlier than they expect. So it looks like he got caught out as an innocent bystander as Yanshi Lin's going to lead the way onto the back straight with Felix Samoes right there on his rear bumper. And you're right, there is a bit of front end damage on that car. It doesn't seem to affect him too much, but this is the place where it will affect him the most. And he's not really closing that gap super quickly, and he's probably not going to be, well, shows what I know, he is going to be super eager to get the nose out there, and it didn't look like it had much of an effect, that damage. So Yanshi Lin going to fall back to second place, going to be in a good position to stay there in second place, doesn't lose more than 1 spot. And yeah, that damage doesn't seem to have a huge effect there on Felix Samoes. He was able to pull out nice and easily and drive right past Yanshi Lin.
It worked out rather okay for him at the end of the day, but hey, I'm not going to call who's going to win this race until we see the very end of it. I think we're taking a look at a replay to see what happened to Mr. Joshua Wilkie earlier on. Replay's a little bit glitched out from my end. Randall, I'll let you take this one.
It looks like Wilkie just gets in a little hot into turn 1 after passing Kurt Nunez. The car in front of him checks up, and he has to get on the brakes a little bit. That causes the rear end to step out as he had the wheel turned, and sends him spinning around, collects Nunez in the process. Yanshi Lin going to retake the lead from Felix Samoes in NASCAR Bend. They're making their way into the left hook now, and then lining up for turns 5A and 5A. The run through the snake here. Right now, looking nice and pretty through this lead group. Not a lot of fighting going on, mostly just scrapping over the lead. But if they keep fighting for very much longer, Jason Green and Jörg Manny are going to join this group. So don't count those two out of this race quite yet. Lap 18 out of 20 underway right now. Just 2 more laps to go this time by.
Yeah, only 2 more laps of racing action left to go, and who's going to win it is the real question. I don't think we'll be able to have the answer for that. I can't even say by the time we get right to the line, because we saw in the Formula V Weekend Warriors race one day ago here on SMB, our live timing software didn't even know who finished where because it was so close at the end of that. I'll get you back a cough drops here, Randall, in a couple of moments as we take a look at Felix Samoa's pulling out and trying to get that move done on Yanchi Lin side by side down that back straightaway off into the roller coaster in a few moments time. Let's see if Samoa's with that slightly dented Spec Racer Ford will be able to get that move done. Looks like Yanchi going to hold on to the inside line into roller coaster, not close enough. Meanwhile, Huffman and Odell side by side, 2 real-life racers in the SECA, giving us a good battle to talk about for the final podium spot. Odell on track for a Spec 2 win as he has to go back to Samoa's back at the 210. Samoa's, though, spinning, coming out of Hog Pen. He keeps it going in a straight line, but he ends up off in the dirt. That's going to take him out of that battle. It's now Yanchi Lin and Jameson Huffman running P1 and P2. Samoa's, that's a big mistake, and that's going to set him back into a battle with himself and Jason Green. So that has big championship implications there as well. That may be a lifeline fed to the driver of the 160 car as we see the side-by-side racing continue into turn number 1.
I am cheering absolutely for Michael Odell here. He's a Spec 2 racer up amongst the Spec 1 racers, and he is not afraid to push the envelope, and he is going for that second position. He is wanting to fight for this win, and go for it, Michael. Do not back down. Show these boys what Spec 2 is all about.
And let's see if Odell will be able to get the moves done to make his way into the race lead come time for the end of this race. If anyone knows how to time it, it's going to be a real-life Spec Racer Ford driver who's probably driven around this track in the sim many a time. Let's look at that. Samoa's in that number 31 car. It's an unfortunate mistake. It's an easy mistake to make, too.
Just too much of that curb, trying to really keep on the rear bumper of Yanchi Lin. Tries to cut that curb too much. You do want to take a healthy dose of that curb. He just gets too much on it, and it looks like he bottomed out going across it, and that really upset the rear end of the car and sent him on a wild ride through the hog pen. And luckily he was able to wrangle it, so he's not going to fall super far down the order. But you're right, it's putting him back there in a race with Jason Green, his championship rival.
And that's going to be a real good battle to talk about as we speak of battles and see what may be 3-wide action heading down the back straightaway for one of the last times in this race. They're coming to the white flag this time by, and it's going to be close for them to grab that white as well. Yanchi Lin, though, closely leading this race. Alaise Plava closely behind. Jameson Huffman right behind there as well. Odell Nazelli rounding out this pack. A car going off the track that I'm not entirely sure who that is. Kurt Nunez just got struck by a falling anvil. He's had this race in 31st at the front of the field. They're on this start-finish straightaway for the second to last time. The white flag in the air. Barry waving at only one more lap of racing action here from the Spec Racer Fords. Jason Green, though, he's coming to the pits. What's going on with the driver of the 160 car? We may have to touch on that in a couple of moments. Let's look at that. Alaise Plava down the inside of Yanchi Lin into turn number 1. Huffman and Odell side by side through 1 as well. Look at Maurizio Nazelli in that 44 car running right behind. He's going to be sneaky in the back of shot. He doesn't want to risk it for the biscuit. He's been in a situation like this before. He's won these races before. And let's see if he's going to be able to pounce and strike while the iron is hot to find himself in the race lead. Jason Green exit out in 12th, which is not ideal. Samoa's is running halfway up the grid compared to him now in 6th. Just barely see him in the back of shot heading off through the S's, but this is the fight that we have in our heads. Yanchi Lin, Jameson Huffman, Alaise Plava, Michael Odell, Maurizio Nazelli gonna give us a dogfight to talk about at the end of this race. Nazelli a little bit farther back, but he can't discredit the driver of the number 44 car. Look at that. Huffman running wide coming out turn number 10 for the last time. That's not going to do him any favors, but it's not the exit out of turn number 10 that's important. It's the exit out of that corner, Oak Tree, turn number 12, going onto this back straightaway for the final time. Who's going to have the best run? Yanchi Lin, he's going to be a sitting duck. Who's going to pull out first? Let's see. Heading down this back straightaway, looks like Odell trying to pull off a dummy, but they're going to be following Jameson Huffman. Look at that, though. Alaise Plava trying to get that move done, making it 3 wide. Yanchi going to be stuck on the outside. Contact being made. Oh! Oh boy, that could have ended in tears. Yashi Lin doing a little bit of lawn mowing, contact being made with Pleva and Huffman. That's some close quarter stuff heading off into the roller coaster. More contact being made, 3-wide action. Look at the Zelly gang involved in all that as well. With all that side by side, beating and banging and roughing each other up, that's going to leave Odell as really the only one that can challenge Pleva. It's a 6/10 of a second lead coming out of the final turn. Zelly having a good run. Huffman out of gas. That's going to take him out of it. But at the front of the field, Lace Pleva in the number 46 car going to grab another win here for the Spec Racer Ford Weekend Warriors. He wins it here at VIR in a really close battle right to the line.
And Huffman was running out of fuel all the way up from roller coaster, and that's why we saw a lot of beating and banging as he was trying to retain as many spots as he could and trying to make that Spec Racer Ford wide. He was out of fuel, and Michael Odell comes home in third place overall, first place in the Spec 2 division, and what a race out of him. Jörg Manning going to win the Masters division, and an exciting finish here, and I'm unfortunately going to have to say I think Jason Green is going to be awarded the Thompson Trophy for fuel management as he had to come in for a splash of fuel. We're seeing some drivers making their way. Chris Montgomery, Charles Vaccaro, Andrew Love in a three-way fight here for 15th position. And it looks like Vaccaro might have gotten it. Nope, Montgomery gets it right at the line. Here comes Matt Thompson, another one of the Frito Sport entries, kind of finished in 19th. And we watched the last few cars that are out here on track circulating. Ethan Orr coming across the line. Pablo Abraham, Leonard Geese, Paul Jackson, all three going to finish this race as well. An exciting one at VIR. VIR, man, it always delivers.
Yeah, VIR always puts on a classic battle, and that was a really good fight to the line. Credit where credit's due to Lace Pleva. He just grabbed the lead and certainly a little bit forceful with it. Don't get me wrong. He wasn't going to be happy with himself if he didn't win this race, but either way, as a brilliant battle right to the line at the end of this 40-minute long race. Lace Pleva going to win, and Michael Odell ends up in third. The second week in a row that we've had a Spec 2 driver end up on the overall podium. So well done to him. We'll note as well that Jörg Mani takes the win in the Masters category. I'm at loss for words after a really exciting day of racing action. That or it's the fact that I've done 4 broadcasts. Oh, wow. Okay, that's Josh Arnold that just spun in the path of Jason Green. His front clip popping off of that car like a misshapen Lego. I'm not entirely sure what we're going to be seeing here. Like, oh, they're going for the jump on the infield. Here we go.
Yeah, 8 Allen not quite making it there. You're going to take one of the early jumps and not quite make it to the big one. We see everybody trying to make their way through the mayhem at the exit of the Snake. This is like Ethan Orr going to lead the way for this group. We're going to see Rain Tyson try to make the jump, and he's going to get a good dose of air out of that car, and then possibly a second one. Nope, not going to go for the second jump. And lots of damaged Spec Racer Fords. And I really have to hand it to Maurizio Naselli. We saw how much he backed off on that last lap to give those front drivers room to shoot themselves in the foot. He's been on the receiving end of most of the controversial finishes of this season, and he's like, all right, once bitten, twice shy. I'm just going to back off and let you people do what you do and pick up the pieces, and manages to come home second place. So good show out of Maurizio.
Yeah, that was a very smart way to tackle the end of that race for him. Oh, I'm not sure who that is upside down. It's someone for sure turtled in the infield, and I gotta say, oh boy, that is a very funky looking race car. That's Daniel Maniakov without a front end or a back end. These Spec Racer Ford cars, they're my favorite door wedges on iRacing as is, but you take the front and the back bodywork off, they look extra goofy. Oh, here we go. Bang! Into the front end of Chris Murakami's race car. You know these Spec Racer Fords kind of look like whenever they're missing the back end? They kind of look like an F mod. Anyone in the other autocross veers here in the SCCA will know what that is. I say here in the SCCA. Like I'm doing it from their damn HQ in Topeka, Kansas. So as we see this Shiitake Mushroom Show at the end of this race continue to develop, I think this will be a good cue for us to take a look at the results at the end of this 10th race of the season. A hard-fought show for the drivers up and down the grid, but a really exciting and compelling day of racing action. And when everything is said and done, your winner of this race is going to grab his 3rd win of the season. He won at Spa, he wins at Silverstone, he wins wins at VIR. That's Alace Pleva in the number 46 car. The Czech driver wins it over Maurizio Nazelli, the German, in P2. Michael Odell, the Spec 2 man, going to grab the Spec 2 win, rounding out your overall podium in third. It'll be Yanchi Lin finishing this race right behind in fourth. James Huffman with that Excursion with the Thompson Trophy going to finish right behind in P5. Jörg Mani, your Masters winner, ends up in 6th. Felix Samoas will finish in P7 in front of Josh Arnold in 8th. Chris Murakami will end up this race in 9th. Solal Shukwi will round out your top 10.
In 11th place, Daniel Manankov, who we didn't really cover too much in the broadcast, quietly has a very good race, finishes 11th. Thompson Trophy winner Jason Green going to finish in 12th. Joachim Osbeck coming home in 13th. Claudio Gardini finishing 14th. Chris Montgomery 15th. Charles Vaccaro in 16th. Andrew Love in 17th. Adam Bradshaw going to finish in 18th. 19th position is going to go to... Wait for it. Matt Thompson, 20, rounding out your top 20, Tom Gradwell.
Yeah, I had to add a little bit of WD-40 to the graphics, but thankfully they have been properly lubricated up, and we can go through the rest of the drivers outside the top 20. It starts with Rain Tessing in the 426 car. He ends up this race in 21st. Aid Allen in the 666 will finish in 22nd. Ethan Orr in the 222 will end up in 23rd. Paolo Brema in the 555 car will end up in 24th. We break away from the triple numbers to find Leonard Geese in the 252, ends up in 25th. Paul Jackson going to finish right behind in 26th. Chris Hewson will finish this race in 27th when everything is said and done. Alan McCain will find himself classed in 28th in front of Dan Witzak in 29th, and Marcus Burkett running at your top 30.
And then all the rest of the cars are one lap or further down. Stephen Mitchell in 31st, Kurt Nunez 32nd, Michael Nelson 33rd, SMB's own Joshua Wilkie going to come home at 34th. He's going to have be glad to mark this weekend off on the calendar. Ben Rycroft 35th, Brad Cathcart in 36th. Patrick Farragher, who we saw influence the lead of this race at one point, finishes in 37th overall. And John Dane is going to finish in 38th.
And looking through 39th. The final... Yes,
39th, Russell Telker. 40th, Scott Russell. Adam Thompson with a very, very average finish of 41st position. Sorry, Adam Thompson's a very close friend of mine, so I'm extremely biased against him. 42nd, David Jarvis. 43rd, Tortello. 44th, Joseph Tarantino. Antonio Reese didn't actually take to the grid. I do not believe it will be classified 45th.
And then that, I believe, will just about do it for the results here in the Spec Racer Ford race round number 10 of this season. And when everything is said and done, Alace Pleva is your winner, but I'm not sure if he's going to come into the interview waiting area to have a chat with us. So instead, I think we'll get things underway with our podium finisher at the end of this race and our Spec 2 winner of Michael Odell, who is now joining us in the commentary booth. Michael, congratulations on the podium and the win in Spec 2. Talk us through a really exciting race here at VIR.
I don't know where to start. Honestly, the start of the race was smooth, actually. I'm surprised with I did get a good tow through quali. That really helped me leapfrog up to the top 10 at least. And just surviving the start, trying to work with people. And the thing is, it's a weird platform because sometimes it's better to race them than it is to work with them, which you'd think is weird because these cars you can bump draft and whatnot, but they're faster if you can just draft up, slingshot, and then just roll the next corner as normal, and if you clear them by then. So it was trying to play the cards of if I bump draft them, or do I slingshot past them and hope they don't fight into the corner, so that we can try to catch people. And it was playing those cards left and right the whole time and trying to defend against the almighty Spec Racer train was also kind of fun. But that last lap, you guys saw the big push I gave the Pleva, the 46 car. I tried to follow him through and I missed the shift, and then when I did that, Maurizio just saw that and was like, hey, look, a free spot, and just took it right up from under me.
I gotta say, regardless of how things shook out towards the end of that final lap, it was a very good drive, and you were very close to becoming the second non-Spec 1 driver to take a win this season, joining some rather elite company with Jurg Mani, the Masters winner at the end of this race. But it was still a pretty good one here at VIR, and we're going to be swapping out this old-school American racetrack for an old-school British racetrack in 1 week's time. Cadwell Park. That's going to be a pretty good one. What are your thoughts heading into there?
I won't have the American home field advantage anymore, so we'll have to be a little careful around that. But we'll see. Honestly, I haven't ran Cadwell Park. I will have to probably put some time in, get some things figured out, because unlike VIR, I can't just throw a car down and go, oh, I've ran here before. Cadwell will be interesting. We'll see how it pans out.
I think that's going to be a good one regardless. This season has been chock full of amazing racing action, and has also seen you grab 2 Spec 2 wins thus far this season, so well done on that, and well done on the win here at VIR today. But before we let you go and celebrate this win in the Spec 2 category, Michael, is there anyone you want to give a thanks to or shout out?
Thank you to the mom and dad as always, and also, this is going to be kind of funny, thank you to Monty for me and him working together in the initial part of the race. I may not have tried to take that non-Spec 1 win thing from him, but he'll hold on to it to now. I'll try to take that from him at Cadwell.
I mean, you still got 2 more races left to go, and hey, talk about American home field advantage. Road Atlanta is a track that's going to bring this season to a close. So that may be that may be something you have to eye up there. But Michael, thank you so much for joining us in the commentary booth, and congratulations on the Spec 2 win.
Thank you very much, sir. Good racing. See y'all next week.
And that right there was Michael Odell, clearly mistaken considering he called me sir. But Randall, we got Jurg Mani, the janitor himself, up there in the interview waiting area. Would you like to have a chat with him?
Jurg Mani, another race, another Masters Division win. Man, we're going to run out of things to talk about here before the end of the season. Tell us what the race was like for you today.
Exciting. I tried to help Adam a little bit with qualifying, so I started a little bit back. Then I got still a nice quali. Not really as much as I wanted, because I had a lot more pace in it. But still, it was quite exciting. But now I am officially dead. I
was going to guess. I was listening into the iRacing chatter during practice, and it sounded like you were getting a little bit slap happy. How were you able to maintain focus after doing the 12-hour race yesterday and then 2 league races today?
Actually, the practice helped me a bit to wake up again. Passing, chasing in the snake section for fun and stuff like that. That helped me to keep focus, and that was great.
Well, another win. I gotta think of another good question for you, because we've already asked about ice cream. We've already asked about pizza, I think. So what is Jurg Mani's favorite food?
Difficult. My homemade lasagna, actually. It's almost my favorite food.
Oh, that sounds delicious.
Well, like I said, my homemade. You can have one if you come to Switzerland. You're invited.
I will keep that in mind. Well, another win for you here today. These Masters Division trophies. I hope you've cleared off some space in the trophy case for them, because they look like they're pretty much yours. Any worries coming up the next 2 weeks?
No, I take it as it comes. I might help Antonio a little bit with with driving again. I'm gonna help him qualifying a bit better now as well. That's what I'm gonna do the next 2 weeks.
Well, congratulations on yet another win. Before we let you go celebrate, anybody you'd like to thank or shout out?
Thank you to Guido.
An unsung hero, Guido Marzucchi, in the production trailer, getting things from the drivers.
He was. I was pulling his leg before, so I should say once in a while something nice to him.
Balances out.
Gotta throw the dog a bone occasionally, right?
Oh yeah, I stepped in the back last time, and now I clear up the knife in his back now. So,
well, congratulations on another win. And I don't think we're done talking to you this season. I said it in the last race, and I'm going to say it here again. The janitor's cleaning up this season.
Thanks a lot, Randall, and keep up your good work, Guido, Ron, and Randall. It's fantastic what you're doing, and I'm always like to watch the videos back when I'm working. Actually, I'm not working that much at the moment, so but yeah, it's nice.
Well, awesome. So hopefully you'll enjoy this one as well. That was Jörg Manny, the janitor, the guy that's been cleaning up everything this season with another Masters win. And what a race, Ron.
Yeah, what a race here at VIR. And I just want to raise one more point about Jörg Manny, considering that he performed the sweep, won in the Formula V Weekend Warriors yesterday, won here in the Spec Racer Fords, and also won in the Formula Fords earlier on. Did not skip out on a race. I actually know he skipped out on the Formula Vs yesterday. What am I saying? But either way, he still finds himself in the very much so possible position to end up scoring the most amount of points out of any driver, regardless of class, in all three of the Weekend Warrior Series. A reminder to anyone who hasn't tuned into the series before, these drivers are scored by their overall position, not by their class position. So Jörg Manny may be able to do that in the final two races of this season, but it's been a brilliant season up to this point. Cadwell Park in 1 week's time going to be a heck of a lot of fun, and we hope you can all join us there. We hope you can just stay tuned here to SMB because we got a whole lot of racing action. In fact, coming up later on today, later on tonight in about 4 hours time, we got the action for round number 2 of the XSLR Series 410 Wing Sprint Car action at the dirt version of the USA International Speedway. You can stay up to date of all of the action here on Slow Motion Broadcasting by hitting that subscribe button and notification bell so you never miss out on any of the racing action. As it stands currently, we are at 931 subscribers. How about we break 1,000 by the end of March? That would be pretty cool indeed. But as for this broadcast here for the Spec Racer Ford Weekend Warriors round number 10 at VIR, that will just about do it. And so, for myself, Ron Maunz, Randall McGrew joining me in the commentary booth, and Guido Marzucchi doing a wonderful job working on the cameras in the virtual production hauler, I say thank you all so very much for watching. Have a great rest of your day, and we hope to see you all wherever it is in the not-too-distant future.